Dark influence. They told you to lead with light, to gain favor through honesty, humility, and kindness. But they never told you that the world doesn't follow light, it follows shadows. People are not moved by purity. They are controlled by perception. And that perception is built not through loudness, but through precision. Real influence begins when you understand that connection is not trust, it's leverage. You don't rise by exposing your truth, you rise by controlling what remains unseen. Influence isn't built by emotion, it's built by mastering your reaction to it. You must learn to make others feel understood, without ever revealing who you are. Let them talk. Let them reveal. You say less, watch more. The less they know, the more they fear. And fear is a better currency than approval. From now on, your value isn't in your presence, it's in your restraint. You'll become the person who isn't easily accessed, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't respond when provoked. That's where the fear grows, in your refusal to play the game they understand. Influence requires detachment, emotional distance wrapped in charm, power hidden in simplicity. You do not rise by being real. You rise by being rare. Speak less. Pause more. Keep them guessing. The moment they feel they understand you, disappear into contradiction. Agree softly, but never completely. Make them lean in for certainty, then shift. Influence is built by being water in a world of fire. Never attack. Only absorb and redirect. You don't dominate through confrontation. You dominate through confusion. And when the room adjusts to your silence, your presence becomes the standard. Influence is not earned, it is architected through every pause, every withheld reaction, every exit that leaves them searching for pieces you never gave. This is where your transformation begins, from emotional participant to psychological strategist, from visible to untouchable, from ordinary to unforgettable. They believe influence is about persuasion, about smiling the right way, using the right words, but that's child's play. Real influence is rooted in emotional invisibility. You don't manipulate people by showing them power. You do it by becoming a mirror, reflecting their desires, fears, and insecurities back at them, all while staying untouched. The most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest, it's the one who makes others question themselves simply by being present. You walk in, and their confidence bends, their certainty shakes. Why? Because your silence speaks in riddles, your energy confuses comfort with danger. You learn to pause before answering, to hold eye contact without blinking, to remain still when others scramble for approval. Your goal is not to speak more, your goal is to make every word feel like strategy. People want to feel seen. You show them only enough to pull them in, then disappear behind the fog of your unpredictability. You smile without reason, detach without warning, vanish without explanation. That's control. You don't beg, you don't warn, you act. Every connection you build is a calculated imbalance. You never let them feel equal. You elevate them, then withdraw. You comfort, then confuse. You agree, then contradict softly, subtly, with no apology. The power isn't in having answers. It's in making others doubt their own. And when they come looking for certainty, they find you cold, calm, and out of reach. That is dark influence, silent dominance, psychological fog, and the kind of presence that teaches people to fear your absence more than your words. You don't manipulate people by being available. You manipulate them by becoming a controlled absence. The mind craves what it can't hold, and the more you step back, the more they step forward, questioning, needing, unraveling. You become the source of emotional imbalance they secretly chase, not through promises, but through unpredictability. You offer warmth without consistency, presence without permanence. And in doing so, you program them to obsess over the void you leave behind. The most dangerous influence is not in what you give, it's in what you withhold. You don't offer reassurance, you offer uncertainty dressed in confidence. And that uncertainty creates obsession. When you speak, your words are minimal but sharp. When you show affection, it's brief but disarming. Then, you retreat. Not because you're weak, but because power demands space to breathe. You want to make them question why they crave you, why your silence hurts more than anyone's anger. That's the game, emotional starvation wrapped in subtle charm. Your presence is designed to feel like a privilege, And when they finally feel close to you, you vanish. Not to be cruel, but to be unforgettable. Influence is not about connection. It's about dependence. And dependence is created when they fear losing the access you never clearly gave. This isn't romance. This is architecture. This is emotional design. And you are no longer a participant in the game. You are the pattern they can't solve. The quiet storm that reshapes their expectations. You don't rush. You don't react. You watch, withdraw, and let them drown in the space where your voice should be. Because your influence doesn't speak. It lingers. Control isn't taken, it's planted. True influence doesn't come from demanding authority. It comes from reshaping perception so quietly that they think it was their idea to follow you. You don't lead with force. You guide with presence. You never declare power, you create atmospheres where your opinion becomes the standard, your silence becomes tension, and your absence becomes disorder. That's how you bend authority without ever confronting it. You don't attack the throne, you infect the room until the throne bends toward you. You use suggestion, not direction. You never say, do this. You say, what if we tried it this way? And then, you let their ego take credit for your plan. That's the game. Influence without resistance. Your power is hidden beneath humility. Your manipulation disguised as strategy. You learn to plant doubt in the minds of those above you gently, respectfully, but deliberately. One hesitation, one question, one pause that lingers too long, and suddenly, they trust you more than they trust themselves. That's how you take the wheel without ever touching it. You reshape people's reality by controlling how they interpret silence, how they decode presence, how they feel when you enter or exit. You don't speak to be heard, you speak to guide thoughts, reactions, and decisions. Influence isn't loud, it's loaded. Your compliments are calculated. Your criticisms come in questions. Your ideas enter as shadows, not speeches. And when the room shifts, no one knows it was you, because real influence leaves no fingerprints. It doesn't announce itself, it installs itself. And you no longer seek control through visibility. You control through mystery, through emotional presence, psychological distance, and the quiet engineering of human behavior. You are not leading, you are shaping. You are not asking, you are rearranging. And they'll never trace it back to you. Because the strongest influence is the one that disappears after planting the seed. If they trust you too quickly, you're doing it wrong. If they feel safe too soon, you've revealed too much. True dark influence is built not through reassurance but through emotional imbalance. People don't attach to what makes them feel good, they attach to what makes them feel uncertain. If you want loyalty, don't give them peace, give them tension. A silence they want to break. A smile they can't read. A moment of closeness followed by sudden coldness. That's how you blur trust, not destroy it, but stretch it until they start questioning their own thoughts around you. That's how you lead someone to chase your approval without ever offering it. You want them craving comfort only you can withhold. You want their loyalty to feel like their own decision, even though you designed it. You don't demand commitment, you confuse them into offering it. They don't follow you because you're right. They follow you because your presence makes them question their own reflection. Every time they think they understand you, you shift. Every time they get close, you vanish just enough to be missed. You become an emotional riddle, the kind of person they keep returning to just to solve the unsolvable. And that's the leash. Curiosity disguised as loyalty. They'll defend you, obey you, and even sacrifice for you, not because you demanded it, but because you engineered the emotional landscape where obedience feels like self-worth. Influence is never begged for. It is built by mastering the push and pull of psychological gravity. You are not their leader. You are their internal contradiction. You are not their savior. You are the storm they've learned to worship. Because loyalty doesn't come from comfort. It comes from the addiction to confusion. And you, John, have become the perfect chaos. There will come a time when your greatest weapon won't be your words, it will be your silence. Not the silence of weakness, but the kind that burns without sound. People don't fear confrontation, they fear disappearance. They fear being ignored by someone who used to see them. That's where real influence lives, not in what you say, but in what you withhold. When you stop responding, you stop bleeding energy. You stop feeding their ego, their expectations, their illusions. You become a vacuum they can't explain, a ghost they can't forget. You punish them with nothing, and that nothing haunts them louder than any argument. The most powerful exits are the ones without closure. No warnings, no breakdowns, just absence. When they can't find the old version of you, they'll realize they were never prepared to face the upgraded one. The longer you stay gone, the more valuable your silence becomes. And that's what teaches them. Not anger, not revenge. Just clean, surgical removal. That's when your absence becomes a mirror. They don't hear your voice, but they replay it. They don't see you, but they imagine you watching. And in that paranoia, your power multiplies. They begin to fear their own actions, their own words, their own decisions, because they know they pushed away someone who never raises their voice, only their standards. You don't leave to get attention. You leave to make a statement that words could never deliver. Because the final stage of dark influence is this: your presence is rare, your silence is punishment, and your absence is unforgettable. Kindness is the last thing they expect from power. And that's exactly why it works. Real influence doesn't always arrive with a storm. Sometimes it comes wearing a smile, the soft voice, the warm eyes, the moment of empathy that makes them feel seen. That's how you disarm their suspicion. Because no one expects to be destroyed by someone who understands them. That's where your edge island. While they lower their guard, trusting the warmth you show them, you're watching, calculating, reading their cracks behind their stories. Kindness, when controlled, isn't weakness. It's the camouflage of domination. You don't use it to heal. You use it to distract. Let them speak. Let them believe they've earned your softness. All the while, you are mapping their patterns, their guilt points, their blind loyalty. Because the most dangerous manipulator is not the one who strikes first. It's the one who listens long enough to know exactly where to place the knife. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to flex control. You give them the illusion that they hold it. And when they finally lean into your calm, trusting it, relying on it, you shift. Not out of anger, not out of chaos, but out of strategy. Your kindness becomes their weakness. Your silence becomes their confusion. And that confusion becomes the leash they tie around themselves. Influence doesn't have to be sharp, it just has to be quiet and timed. Because nothing terrifies people more than realizing the one who understood them best was never truly there to comfort them. You were there to control the story. The most powerful people are rarely celebrated because their fingerprints don't exist. They move behind decisions, shape outcomes without titles, and make others believe it was all their idea. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. When your ego no longer needs recognition, you become lethal. You don't need applause when you control the script. You don't need validation when you own the room from the shadows. That's real influence, the kind that doesn't announce itself, it installs itself. You plant the idea, then step back. You shift the direction, then disappear. Let others wear the crown you built, the kingdom's foundation. You don't need to be liked. You need to be obeyed, and the ones who obey you don't even realize why they do. That's because you've become an environment, a force, not a person they confront, but a presence they adjust to. And that's the final stage of influence. When you no longer argue, explain, or even show up, and yet everything still bends in your favor. You make them believe they're in control. But every choice they make was calculated by you long before they thought it. No resistance, no spotlight, just outcome. Cold, clean, controlled. This is not about playing the game. This is about becoming the game, the rules, the map, the silence between moves. You're not just untouchable now, you're undeniable, and no one knows how or when it happened. They only know the room feels different when you enter, and broken when you leave, loyalty without chains. The greatest loyalty isn't forged through love, it's born through fear they can't explain. Not fear of punishment, but fear of losing your presence. Your silence becomes a mirror they avoid. Your detachment becomes a punishment they relive. You never demand their loyalty, you let your absence haunt them until it feels like betrayal to stand against you. That's how you win. Not through obedience, but through alignment. You influence their identity so subtly that they begin to think like you, speak like you, and defend your ideals as if they were born with them. You don't force their loyalty, you replace their compass. And once they associate your disappointment with failure, you've already won. You don't need control when they police themselves in your name. You don't speak in ultimatums, you make silence feel like exile. And when they try to rebel, they collapse under the weight of losing access to you. That's the kind of loyalty that doesn't need reminders. It breathes in them. You don't need praise. You don't even need their presence. They'll carry your influence into rooms you've never entered because you've built your voice inside their choices. You became their map. You became their reward. You became the storm they bowed to, not because you demanded it, but because they felt safer under your shadow than in your absence.